You ever notice how some people are born just to be a thorn in your side? That was Heather, my half-sister, same age as me, just 20 days apart if you can believe that, born into the same chaos but somehow always determined to make mine worse. You could call us twins from different wombs, but without any of the love or support that twins supposedly share. Our very existence was a reminder of betrayal, infidelity, and dysfunction. My dad left my mom for her mom, and if that doesn't set the tone, I don't know what does. From the moment I was old enough to remember anything, Heather was there, smiling that smug little smile. She always had something to prove, to me, to her mom, to the universe. Her mom couldn't stand me or my mom. That woman carried bitterness like a badge of honor. It bled into Heather, made her snarky, competitive, and just plain mean. Every family gathering, every holiday, every shared birthday party growing up, it was a silent war. And sometimes not so silent. Heather always needed to one-up me. If I got an A on a test, she got an A+, and made sure everyone knew. If I wore a nice dress, she'd show up in one that screamed runway. If I got a job, she suddenly had two. We came from the same background, same middle-class mess, same split family drama, but Heather pretended like she was royalty descending on peasants whenever she walked into a room. Her confidence wasn't earned. It was weaponized. Every achievement of mine was something for her to overshadow, and I tolerated it for years. Bit my tongue through birthday parties and Christmas dinners, endured passive-aggressive compliments and side-eyed glances from her mother. I thought, maybe if I just rise above it, she'll get tired of trying to outshine me. She didn't. Fast forward to last month. My fiancé, Jake, proposed. He's one of the few things in my life that doesn't come with a side of dysfunction. Stable, kind, genuine. We're both 24, building a life that felt miles away from the chaos I came from. When he got down on one knee, I thought, this is it, a new beginning. Naturally, we planned an engagement party, something relaxed, intimate, just family and close friends, a casual, formal vibe. Think nice dresses and button-ups, but not tuxedos and gowns. I wanted something warm and elegant, like us. We set the date for a Saturday evening, sent out the invites. I even personally texted Heather because despite everything, I was still trying, still holding on to the idea that maybe, just maybe, we could be civil. Her reply was lukewarm, which was expected. I didn't hear much from her after that, until my cousin Anna messaged me 3 days before the party. "You're not gonna believe what Heather's wearing," she wrote, attaching a photo. I opened it, and my heart sank. My jaw clenched so tight I thought I'd break a tooth. There she was, Heather, trying on what was unmistakably a wedding gown, long, flowing, stark white, strapless, beaded with fake crystals that glimmered even in the grainy photo. Gold accents lined the bodice like she was about to walk down the aisle at Versailles, not even a hint of subtlety. It screamed, "Look at me!" It screamed, "I'm the bride." My blood boiled. I stared at the image for a full minute, trying to make sense of it. Was she confused? Mistaken? No. This was deliberate. Intentional. Heather, in all her narcissistic glory, had found a way to turn my engagement party into her runway moment. She was going to steal my spotlight, again. I paced around my kitchen, phone in hand, rage bubbling under my skin. Jake noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting down his coffee. I showed him the picture. His brows shot up. "Is that a wedding dress?" "That's what it looks like," I muttered. Is she serious?" "Oh, she's dead serious." He stared at it again, then at me. "So, what are you gonna do?" That was the moment something inside me clicked. I was done playing the bigger person. Done letting Heather walk all over my moments. I wasn't going to let her strut into my engagement party like it was her coronation. If she wanted to play games, fine, but this time I'd play smarter. I texted Anna first. "We're changing the party. It's now a costume event." Within an hour, I was texting nearly everyone on my guest list. Friends, cousins, co-workers, anyone I knew would be cool with rolling with the punches. "Hey, last-minute change. We're turning Saturday's party into a Halloween-style costume bash. Get creative. Don't stress. If you can't find a costume in time, we'll have wigs and props at the door. Simple. Fun. No explanation needed. I knew my mom's side of the family would be on board. They're wild about Halloween. Every year they go all out with group costumes, homemade props, even full-blown skits. I barely finished sending out the messages when I started getting excited texts back. Yes, I'm pulling out my Luffy costume. Girl, I have been waiting for this excuse. Then I messaged my dad. Hey, just a heads up. Change of plans. We're making the party costume-themed. Let Heather and her mom know, please. I sent it with a full understanding of who I was dealing with. My dad isn't a bad man, but he's the kind of guy who leaves things until the last second. If he did tell them, it'd be too late to adjust. If he didn't, even better. Either way, Heather was walking into a surprise. Saturday rolled around. Jake and I were buzzing with anticipation. We had decorations up, snacks and drinks laid out, and a big bin of cheap accessories by the entrance. Wigs, masks, feather boas. I wore a ridiculous Mojo Jojo outfit, bright green cape and all, while Jake went as Bubbles from Powerpuff Girls, complete with pigtails. It was absurd, it was hilarious, and it was perfect. Our guests started arriving. One after another, people walked through the door laughing, smiling, dressed to the nines in the most outrageous outfits. My mom and aunts came in full ABBA gear, glitter and sequins lighting up the room. One couple dressed as Jurassic Park characters. Another showed up as Jesus and a devil. Even people who hadn't prepped for the theme got into it with the wigs and hats we provided. The energy was electric. We were already an hour into the party when the door creaked open again. And there they were. Heather, my dad, her mom. Heather walked in like she owned the place, chin high, long white gown sweeping behind her like a veil of ice. Her lips were perfectly glossed, her hair curled into ringlets like a Pinterest bride. She hadn't changed a thing. My dad looked uncomfortable, probably realizing too late he'd forgotten to tell her. Her mom, unsurprisingly, looked smug until they took in the room. Everyone was in costume. Laughter echoed off the walls. The lights were dimmed with purple backlighting and orange decor. A fog machine puffed lightly in the corner. My guests were drinking punch out of cauldrons. Heather's face contorted in real time, from pride to confusion to pure rage. Then Jake walked up to her, deadpan, and said, "Hey Heather, love your costume. That bargain bride look is killer." She blinked at him like he'd slapped her. The color drained from her face. She turned to her mother, whispering frantically. My dad tried to diffuse things, but Heather was already on the verge of tears. The room went silent for a second, then someone giggled, and it was over. The illusion she'd crafted, the spotlight she thought she'd steal, shattered. She stormed out without another word. Her mom followed, fuming. My dad lingered awkwardly before slipping out behind them. And me? I turned back to the party and raised my drink. It was the best night of my life. And this? This was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke up with mascara smudged under my eyes, glitter in my hair, and a hangover made entirely of satisfaction. The apartment still smelled faintly of fake fog and microwave mini quiches. Jake was still asleep, snoring softly under the covers, one of his pigtails lopsided from his Bubbles costume. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, replaying Heather's face when she walked into that room. It played like a movie in my mind. The exact second her eyes scanned the sea of costumes, realized she wasn't the center of attention, and then landed on me in my oversized Mojo Jojo helmet. If smugness had a predator, it was poetic humiliation. I wasn't surprised that she left. I wasn't surprised that her mother stormed out either. But I was surprised I hadn't felt even a flicker of guilt. Not one bit. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I reached for it, expecting a flood of post-party selfies and best night ever texts. I wasn't wrong. My cousin Anna had sent at least 10 photos, including a hilarious shot of Jesus high-fiving my ABBA-costumed aunt. The captions were gold. Your dad's face when Heather realized it was a costume party. Priceless. Then came the message I knew would come eventually. Dad, you really hurt Heather last night. Her mom is furious. I had no idea you were serious about the costume thing. You should have told her yourself. I stared at the message, reading it 3 times before tossing the phone aside like it had insulted me personally. Of course he had no idea. Of course he forgot to tell her. That had been the plan, hadn't it? But now, suddenly, he cared? Jake stirred beside me. Your dad? He asked without opening his eyes. Yeah. Apparently, Heather's fragile ego was wounded by the costume party she tried to hijack. He cracked one eye open and gave me a slow grin. So, it worked? Oh, it worked. But something in me twisted. Not regret, not even close, but that creeping feeling you get when you realize the other shoe might drop. My dad and I had never been especially close. Ever since he left my mom, our relationship had been more obligation than affection. But I had tried. Despite everything, I still invited him, still included him, still gave Heather and her mom a seat at my table. This time, I didn't feel like doing any of that anymore. Later that afternoon, while Jake cleaned up leftover party decor, I sat down with a cup of coffee and opened my laptop. I knew Heather. This wasn't over. She was the type to regroup, reframe, and retaliate. I braced myself for a passive-aggressive Facebook post, or worse, an indirect jab during our next family gathering. But nothing prepared me for what actually happened. She posted on Instagram. The photo was cropped tight, a dramatic black and white filter over her in that glittering dress. She'd angled the shot so the background of the party wasn't visible, just her, alone, looking down, like a modern Greek tragedy. The caption? Sometimes the people closest to you will humiliate you just to feel better about themselves. Class can't be bought or faked. Some people just aren't built for grace. Oh, she was doing that. I let out a dry laugh. The comments were filled with her little echo chamber of friends, most of whom didn't even show up to the party. OMG, babe, who would do that to you? You're a queen, they're just jealous. They really showed their true colors. SMH. I wanted to respond. I wanted to comment something sharp, clever, and public. But instead, I just took a screenshot and sent it to Anna, along with a single line. She's already playing victim. Anna's response came instantly. LOL, let her. Everyone who was actually there knows the truth. And that was the difference. Heather had curated her reality for likes and sympathy, but the people who mattered had witnessed the real story. They'd seen her stomp in wearing a wedding dress to my engagement party. They'd heard Jake's costume comment. They'd watched her flee like Cinderella minus the grace. The next couple of days were quiet. I didn't reach out to my dad. He didn't call. My mom, of course, was delighted. She thought she could steal your thunder, she said while we were having lunch on Tuesday. You flipped the switch before she even knew there was a trap. Mom, you make it sound like I plotted a heist. You did. A fabulous glitter-covered party-themed heist. I smiled, but a shadow lingered. Dad's mad at me. Says I should have told Heather directly. My mom sighed, sipping her water. Sweetheart, your father made his choice a long time ago. If he didn't tell her, that's on him, not you. You gave him the message. He dropped the ball. That should have made me feel better. And in a way, it did. But a deeper truth sat in my stomach, hard and sour. I didn't matter to my dad the way Heather did. I never had. I was the daughter from the old life, the one he left behind when he traded vows for someone new. Heather was the daughter who came with the fresh start, and the party had just made that truth louder. Then came Thursday. Jake and I were eating takeout on the couch when my phone rang. It was my father. I hesitated. Jake muted the TV. You gonna take it? I nodded slowly. Yeah, might as well. I answered with a neutral, hello? Hey, he said, voice unusually flat. We need to talk. There was a long pause. I could feel the weight of whatever he was building up to. Heather's really upset, he finally said. You embarrassed her. She embarrassed herself, I replied, calm but firm. She wore a literal wedding gown to my engagement party. She says she didn't know it was a wedding dress. Come on. She said she thought it was elegant, special. Special? Dad, she wanted to be the center of attention. Again. And when she couldn't, she spiraled. He exhaled sharply. Look, I just think it was a little cruel, that's all. Cruel? My voice cracked a bit. Cruel is trying to hijack someone's engagement celebration to feel superior. Cruel is pretending to support me while plotting to humiliate me. She's your sister. No, she's my half-sister. And we've never been close. That was by design. Her design. There was silence. Then a quieter, more cutting sentence. Her mother's really upset too. There it was. The real priority. I felt something harden in me, a door closing. You know what, Dad? If Heather and her mom are more important to you than standing up for me, your daughter, that's fine, but don't expect me to keep showing up just to be disrespected. Don't be dramatic. Not dramatic. Just done. I hung up. Jake didn't say anything. He just reached over, took my hand, and squeezed it. And in that quiet, I realized something. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to fix it. I didn't feel the need to chase validation from a man who had always kept one foot out the door of my life. Heather and her mother had drawn their lines, and now so had I. This was my story now. And revenge? Well, it had just begun. In the days following that phone call with my father, something in me shifted permanently. Not dramatically, not in some overly cinematic way, but like the quiet click of a lock that had long been jammed. The kind of click you don't hear until it's too late to undo. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even embarrassed by the family fallout that had ensued from what people online were already calling the costume party coup. No, what I felt was clarity. A cool, razor-sharp clarity that told me I had done the right thing, not just by exposing Heather's pettiness, but by refusing to carry the emotional baggage that my father had always handed me without apology. Jake noticed the change, too. "You're not pacing," he said one evening as we both folded laundry on the couch. I glanced over. Huh? You usually get all antsy when you're stressed, like you pace or reorganize the silverware drawer. You haven't touched that drawer in days. I think this is personal growth. I snorted. It's either growth or complete emotional detachment. Toss a coin. Still, even as I felt more self-assured, I couldn't shake the feeling that Heather wasn't finished. Knowing her, really knowing her, meant understanding that she didn't let things go. She stored them, like trophies or grudges, and the fact that she'd left my engagement party humiliated, crying, and without a shred of attention meant she was stewing. I just didn't know what she was cooking up yet, but I didn't have to wait long to find out. The following week, Jake and I met with our wedding planner, Danielle, to finalize a few venue details. We were sitting at a small table in the back of the event space, sipping on chilled coffee and going over lighting options, when Danielle suddenly glanced up from her notes. So, weird thing. I got an inquiry yesterday from someone asking about canceling or rescheduling your wedding date. Jake and I both blinked at her. I leaned forward slowly. Wait, what? She nodded. They didn't say they were you, but they used your full names and asked how to access the cancellation policy for your deposit. It felt off, so I didn't respond right away. My heart dropped. Do you still have the email? Yep, she said, flipping her iPad around. I flagged it just in case. There it was, plain as day. A message from a suspiciously vague Gmail account with no photo, no signature, and no shame. And while it never explicitly said who was behind it, the wording gave it away. Due to recent family drama, we are considering alternative dates and vendors. Please advise on your policy for refunding or postponing the Johnson-Walker wedding scheduled for our date. We appreciate your discretion during this sensitive time. My blood ran cold. Jake leaned in, his jaw tightening. She's trying to sabotage the wedding. I knew she was petty, I muttered, but I didn't think she was unhinged. Danielle raised a brow. You think this was your sister? Half-sister, I corrected too quickly. Jake gave me a look that said he was 2 seconds from driving to her house and delivering karma in person. But I wasn't rattled. Not really. I was fired up. Heather had tried to hijack my engagement party and failed. Now she was escalating, trying to mess with the wedding itself. What would be next? Calling the dress shop? Making fake RSVPs? "I want to fight back," I whispered, the words surprising even myself. Jake blinked. "You do?" I nodded, slowly at first, then with conviction. "I don't want to play defense anymore, I want to win." Jake gave a cautious smile. "Okay, but what does winning look like?" That was the question, wasn't it? And as we left the venue and got into the car, my brain went into overdrive. I didn't want to sink to Heather's level. I wasn't going to fake cancel her events or stoop to anonymous sabotage. What I needed was a plan that would expose her for exactly what she was, someone so consumed with envy that she couldn't help but self-destruct. And maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to push her over the edge, just enough to let her do the dirty work herself. That night, I stayed up late, hunched over my laptop like a general plotting a battlefield. I started with her social media accounts. Heather was predictable, in that influencer-adjacent, overly filtered kind of way. Her Instagram grid was curated like a magazine spread: fitness poses, luxury candids, latte art, vacation throwbacks, and a lot of self-help quotes she absolutely did not live by. One post in particular caught my eye, a photo of her posing in front of a local bridal boutique. The caption read, "Manifesting the future I deserve, one day soon, say yes." It was dated just 2 weeks before my engagement party. I smiled slowly. Bingo. I wasn't sure what was more pathetic, the fact that she was clearly obsessed with beating me down the aisle, or that she was documenting the thirst publicly. But what struck me most was the boutique in the background. It was my boutique. I clicked the geotag. Sure enough, it was the same high-end dress shop where I had made an appointment the month prior. Heather had posed outside the store as if she had an appointment, but I knew from talking to the sales associate that no one else with our last name had been scheduled before or after me. She wanted my spotlight. She wanted my moment, and I had just found the perfect way to use her own vanity against her. The plan started forming slowly, not as a straight-up revenge move, but as something more psychological. Something subtle. Heather wanted to outshine me? Fine. I'd blind her. The next morning, I posted a photo of me and Jake at our engagement party. Me in my over-the-top costume, him in his, both of us laughing so hard it looked like we were mid-collapse. The caption was simple: "When your enemies show up in wedding gowns, but you still steal the show, darn best night ever, darn still engaged, darn nice try though." The comments exploded. Friends, co-workers, even old classmates started chiming in with inside jokes from the party. Some of them, like my cousin Anna, went rogue with emojis and coded roasts that only Heather would understand. And then came the DMS. One from a girl I hadn't spoken to since high school. I think I just connected the dots. "That was your half-sister in the dress, wasn't it? Girl, GIRL. Another from someone mutual with Heather. "She's losing her mind about your post. I heard she's threatening to clear the air at the next family dinner. Brace yourself." I wasn't worried. I had just laid bait. If Heather wanted to start a war, I was going to let her walk right into it. And she did. Later that day, Heather posted her own Instagram story, a short, passive-aggressive video of her twirling in a white dress in her living room. The text over the video said, "Funny how insecure people always feel threatened by beauty. Stay mad." But what she didn't realize was that I had screen recorded the entire thing. And I wasn't done collecting receipts. The weekend after my post went live, the tension in my family hit a boiling point. My cousin Anna called me while I was still in bed Saturday morning, barely awake, her voice buzzing with gossip-fueled adrenaline. "Okay, so I know we said we weren't going to talk about her anymore," she whispered like Heather was in the next room, "but have you seen her latest TikTok?" My heart dropped, then kicked into gear with caffeine-like intensity. "No. What did she do now?" Anna exhaled. Oh, she's spiraling. She posted a video in that same white dress calling it her angel costume and pretending like she didn't know it was a Halloween party. She even said you were the one who told her it was a formal event and then switched it at the last minute as a cruel prank. She made herself look like the victim. I sat up straight in bed. Jake turned over beside me, squinting. "She's really milking it?" I asked. "She's practically churning butter," Anna deadpanned. "But get this, her comments are all people calling her brave, saying you sound like a narcissist, that it's always the insecure ones who throw costume parties to feel superior." My first instinct was to reply. Publicly, maybe even do a video response or call her bluff directly, but I stopped myself. No, I'd done enough to steer the narrative in my favor already. I didn't need to chase validation. Heather was already burning her own reputation down one defensive post at a time. Still, something about that video made me feel a switch flip again. Heather wasn't just reacting, she was plotting. She couldn't stand the idea that people might laugh at her, especially not when she had tried so hard to humiliate me, which meant she was going to retaliate, and it was only a matter of time before she struck again. But I wasn't waiting this time. I was going on offense. I began by quietly reaching out to a few mutual friends and cousins, people who knew both me and Heather, people who didn't have a horse in the race but could tell right from wrong. I wasn't gossiping. I was sharing context. I let them in on the dress situation, the attempted wedding cancellation email, and her TikTok spin job. I didn't ask them to do anything, just know the truth. And that was all it took. Word spread and the tide started to shift. One of our mutuals who followed Heather messaged me a screenshot a day later. Heather had posted a second TikTok, this one in a totally different tone, more subdued, more defensive. "I'm not going to apologize for dressing up for a party. I was told it was formal. I didn't know it was a costume party, and now I'm being attacked online by people who weren't even there." In the comments, people were starting to question her. If you didn't know it was a costume party, why not just laugh it off like everyone else? Why post in the dress again? You're literally proving her point. It's giving main character syndrome. I couldn't help but smile. I hadn't lifted a finger, but the dominoes were falling anyway. Meanwhile, Jake and I were knee-deep in wedding prep. Between tasting menus and flower samples, I almost forgot the drama swirling in the background. But I was still watching, still planning. And then came the final spark, the one that turned this slow-burn feud into a wildfire. It started with a wedding invitation. Not mine, Heather's. Yep. She had decided, 3 weeks after my engagement party, to announce that she was engaged, out of nowhere. No photos of the proposal, no name drop of the fiancé, just a pastel pink post that read, "He asked, I said yes, coming 2025. I blinked at the screen in disbelief. "She's not even dating anyone seriously?" I muttered to Jake as I stared at her post. "This is fake, or it's just her trying to get attention." Jake laughed bitterly. "She couldn't stand you having a moment, huh?" I looked down at my phone again. The caption continued, "Save the date cards coming soon. Small, elegant ceremony. Only real friends invited." Only real friends? Subtle. Very subtle. But that's when I saw the opportunity. If Heather wanted to play games, I could finish the match. I opened a fresh doc on my computer and started writing. Not a message, not a post. A story, a very specific story, about a woman whose half-sister had tried to sabotage her engagement party by showing up in a literal wedding dress, and who then tried to cancel her wedding plans and spin the internet against her. A story about a revenge that was so beautifully petty it circled all the way back to poetic justice. I posted the story anonymously on Reddit under the Revenge subreddit. It didn't include any names or identifying details, just the facts, with a little extra polish. Within hours it was gaining traction. People were loving it, eating it up. The top comment was, "I would pay to see this wedding dress meltdown. Absolute legend behavior." Another said, "That's the kind of revenge that ages like fine wine." It blew up. Over the next couple of days, it was cross-posted, screenshotted on Instagram, turned into a TikTok story time, and even paraphrased on a podcast about family drama. Nobody knew it was me, but Heather did. I could feel it in the eerie silence that followed. She stopped posting, stopped commenting, stopped defending herself, like a performer who suddenly realized the spotlight had turned into a magnifying glass. She was being studied, and she hated it. 2 weeks later, I received an RSVP card in the mail. It wasn't for her fake wedding, and because, surprise, that didn't actually exist. No, it was from a distant aunt who had previously declined to attend our ceremony, saying she had conflicting loyalties. The card read, "Changed my mind. Life's too short for passive-aggressive people. Can't wait to celebrate you both." Jake saw me reading it and smirked. "Is that a victory lap I see?" I folded the card slowly. "Nope, just vindication." And honestly, that felt better than any mic drop moment could. But I wasn't done yet. The silence didn't last forever. After weeks of quiet, Heather finally reemerged, louder, more defensive, and more chaotic than before. But she hadn't posted anything publicly. No, her return came through the form of a group text, one that included me, Jake, my father, Heather's mom, and, oddly, my cousin Anna. It was sent just before midnight, as if Heather had been stewing in her room, phone clutched in hand, rereading every comment on that viral Reddit story and seething at the possibility that people were laughing at her. The message was a wall of text. No hello, no preamble. "I don't appreciate being made into the butt of someone's joke. I came to your engagement party to support you, even though you and your side of the family have always treated me like I didn't belong. That dress was not a wedding dress. It was white and formal. That's not illegal. And telling people I was trying to outshine you? That's such a reach. Nobody was even paying attention to me until your fiancé decided to make a scene and call it a bride costume." How childish. I've been nothing but supportive, and now everyone is talking about me like I'm crazy because you keep stirring the pot. I stared at the screen, then scrolled again. That wasn't all. "Also, I know you posted that Reddit story. It's literally word for word what happened, and you think you're slick just because you changed names. It's slander. I could sue." Jake looked over my shoulder, then snorted. "Sue you for what? Anonymous storytelling?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard, my heart racing. Not from fear, but from fury. Heather wasn't just denying everything. She was trying to twist the truth again. Recast herself as the wounded party. Paint me as a villain for daring to take back my narrative. But I didn't reply. Not right away. I had learned that silence, when timed right, could be louder than any words. Instead, I took a screenshot, sent it to Anna privately, and we both agreed on what needed to be done. We were going to make Heather answer for all of it, but not with a fight. With facts. Because what Heather didn't know was that Anna, who had long played the role of quiet observer in our family drama, had been keeping receipts. Literal ones. Photos of Heather trying on that dress weeks before the party. Screenshots of the texts where she bragged to a mutual friend about stealing the spotlight. Even a voice memo where she laughed and said, "I swear, if anyone wears white besides me, I'll scream." With Anna's blessing, I compiled it all into one long email, addressed only to my father. I didn't copy Heather or her mom. I didn't send it to other relatives. I wanted him to see it. Just him. The subject line was simple: "You deserve the truth before the wedding." In the email, I laid everything out. Our childhood, the competition Heather had always created, the dress, the fake wedding announcement, the attempt to hijack my party, the viral story, and most importantly, her attempts to gaslight everyone afterward. I ended it with this: "I'm not sending this to you to make you pick sides. I already know where you stand. You've stood there my whole life. But I'm tired of protecting people's feelings when mine have never been considered. If you want a relationship with me moving forward, it has to start with accountability. Not silence, not excuses, just truth." And then I hit send. What followed was another week of silence, but this time it felt different. Tense, like the house of cards Heather had built was finally beginning to wobble. I didn't hear from my dad, not immediately, but I did hear from people who had previously distanced themselves from me. An aunt who used to sit on the fence messaged me to say, "I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. I'm sorry." Another cousin invited me to a brunch without Heather for the first time in years. Small things, but significant. And then the real bombshell dropped. I got a call from my dad. He sounded old, not in age but in energy, like someone who had been forced to look in the mirror and didn't like what stared back. "I got your email," he said, voice gravelly. I read it. Twice. I said nothing, letting the silence hang. "I'm sorry," he added, "for not seeing it sooner, for not doing more. I thought I was keeping the peace, but I guess I was just making you feel invisible." That almost made me cry, not because it fixed everything, but because it was the first time in my life he'd said anything remotely resembling that kind of truth. "I don't expect us to fix everything overnight," I told him, "but I'm not letting this dynamic follow me into marriage. Jake and I are building something different, healthier, and I need to know that you're either with me or out of the way." He paused for a long time, then said, "I'll be at the wedding. Alone. Alone." That meant no Heather, no her mother, no drama. I didn't know whether to believe him, but the fact that he even said it was enough for now. Meanwhile, Heather had been relatively silent on social media until one afternoon she posted something new, a black and white selfie, captioned, "Cutting out toxic people, protecting my peace, don't ask." The comments were flooded with people asking, but I didn't need to. I already knew. She had been exposed, quietly, elegantly, and now she was retreating into victimhood again, only this time the audience wasn't as willing to buy the act. And me? I was finally free to enjoy the actual engagement. Jake and I threw a small celebration with friends, just pizza, board games, and laughter. No costumes, no white dresses, no drama. Just real joy. The morning of our wedding dawned cool and golden, one of those rare spring days when the world feels like it's holding its breath. My nerves weren't about the ceremony, or the vows, or even the guest list. I'd spent so long bracing for something to go wrong, some ambush, some uninvited drama, that peace itself felt unfamiliar. Jake and I had decided on an intimate ceremony, no more than 60 people. We held it at a vineyard outside the city, the kind of place that smells like flowers and earth and feels like a sanctuary. No ornate chapel, no massive ballroom, just sunshine, white chairs, and people we loved. The final guest list had been a point of tension for months. Heather was not invited. That decision hadn't come easily. It took sitting down with my dad and laying everything out again. She came to my engagement party in a wedding dress. That's not something you misunderstand. That's a message. At first he'd tried to argue that family comes first, that maybe Heather was just being misguided, but eventually, even he stopped trying to spin her actions into anything noble. And in the end, he agreed. If Heather came, I wouldn't. And that would be his burden to carry. The guest list was finalized. Heather was out, so was her mother. But here's the thing about people like Heather, they don't like being told no. They don't like being invisible. Especially not when the spotlight is fixed on someone else. 2 days before the wedding, Heather posted a photo of a beach and tagged it with a cryptic caption. "Some people chase fairy tales. I make my own reality." It didn't seem to mean anything, but something about the timing felt too on the nose, like she needed everyone to know she was fine, thriving even. And then, the day before the wedding, someone sent me a screenshot. Heather had uploaded a private story on Instagram, one that included only a curated list of friends she believed would sympathize with her. It was a selfie in a long, pale pink gown. "Off to crash a little fairy tale," it read. "If she wants a scene, I'll give her one." My blood ran cold. Jake saw the screenshot and immediately stood up, pacing. "She wouldn't actually show up, right?" he asked. "Not after everything?" "She wore a wedding dress to our engagement party," I reminded him. "She absolutely would." It was too late to hire new security, but I wasn't going to let Heather derail this. Not again. So I made a call. Or rather, two. The first was to my cousin Anna, I knew I could trust her to help handle anything discreetly. She agreed without hesitation. The second was to our planner. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, "can we add a check-in list to the gate for tomorrow? Just a quick head count and name check. Security light." The planner didn't ask questions. She just agreed. The next day, I got ready without fear. My mother zipped up my dress with tears in her eyes. "You look like you don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore," she said. And I didn't. Not to Heather. Not to my dad. Not to whatever part of me still lived in that awkward, overlooked girl who always had to fight for space in her own family. As guests began arriving at the vineyard, I watched from a distance, hidden away in the bridal suite. People were laughing, hugging, no costumes this time, just joy. Then came a knock on the door. It was Anna. "She came," she said simply. Pink dress, big hair, and all the passive aggression in the world. I closed my eyes. "Let me guess. She said she's just here to wish us well?" "Something like that, but don't worry. She didn't make it past the check-in table." Anna handed me her phone. On it was a blurry photo of Heather standing just outside the venue gate. Her face was scrunched in irritation. Her hands were flailing as she argued with the staff. She hadn't been on the list. She hadn't been invited. Security offered her a water and called her a car. "I told them to say the bride was too busy to speak," Anna said, "and that the day was full of love and closed to chaos." I laughed, a real, full laugh, the first one in a long time that wasn't edged with bitterness. "I love you," I told her. "Seriously. Go get married," she said. "You earned this." And I did. The ceremony was perfect. Jake cried during the vows. I did too. The vineyard was bathed in that golden hour light that makes everything feel cinematic. We walked back up the aisle as husband and wife to a wave of cheers and confetti and applause. There was no drama, no interruptions. Heather never got in. At the reception, my dad pulled me aside. His eyes were glassy, not from wine, but from something heavier. "She really showed up?" he asked. "She tried," I said, "but this wasn't about her." He nodded. "I'm proud of you." And for the first time in years, I believed him. That night, Jake and I danced under string lights. We clinked glasses. We took photos in a booth with oversized sunglasses and plastic swords. And every so often, I caught people glancing at me, not with pity or curiosity, but with respect. I hadn't just survived Heather's attempt to humiliate me. I'd outplayed her, outclassed her, and built a life where she couldn't touch me anymore. In the days that followed, Heather's presence faded. She posted another cryptic selfie, something about levels and outgrowing small minds. But no one commented. No one engaged. The silence around her was deafening. Meanwhile, our wedding photos went viral. Not just the aesthetics, but the story. The bride who turned a family feud into poetic justice. The woman who dressed up like Mojo Jojo and walked into her own happily ever after. And every time someone asked me what finally happened with Heather, I just smiled. "She came," I'd say. But she never got in.